Perlman.
Hello. We're going to be talking about using hovercrafts for flooding crises from climate change, hurricanes, and other emergencies with my guest, Charles Beyer. He is Executive Director, CEO, and founder of Hovercraft Rescue and Transport. He's also a designer and a civil and mining engineer. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Yes. Hello.
You have created a very interesting piece of technology that you believe will help rescues much faster than helicopters when areas are flooded. Could you describe what a hovercraft is?
Hovercrafts are basically a boat with a bubble trapped underneath by a flexible skirt. So in the case of, say, Pine Island down there in Florida after the hurricane, they can zip in on the water right over the debris and cross sand, or in the case of like Mexico Beach, they can zip in there when all the roads are washed out, or in the case of Libya right now where there's huge piles of supplies and rescue equipment.
Throughout the world, we're seeing many more natural disasters, which are basically caused by humans creating climate change. Is there one kind of flooding situation where hovercrafts would be better than another?
Yeah, I would say areas that are flat, such as Florida or some inland states, or for instance, Houston that flooded a while back, tropical storms and hurricanes that have brought in lots of water or continuous water are the most applicable situations.
But yet the hovercraft has to wait till the winds drop to less than 20 miles per hour.
Yes, that's true. But we can be waiting on the edge of the storm and be mobilized in a few hours into the areas that need rescue.
What other situations would be applicable to having hovercrafts?
For instance, the San Francisco airport, the end of the runway is a huge mud flat. And if an airplane, say, breaks a wheel or whatever, spins off the runway into this mud flat, the rescue plan there is to lay out sheets of plywood to access the wreck, whereas a hovercraft could just zip out there and rescue people right off the bat. A hovercraft is good for minefields in that with a Kevlar bottom on there and a ground pressure of only less than 10 pounds per square foot. It can fly over the mines without detonating them, or if it does, with the Kevlar bottom, you would theoretically be spared. The EPA and other environmental agencies have used these extensively in estuaries where the mud is what they call bottomless flocculated muck. In other words, it's all full of air. If someone was to step into it, they sink up to their waist, and it's extremely dangerous. These hovercrafts have been used in these estuaries for maybe 15 years now without incident, also without any environmental damage. As it being a soap bubble, it only leaves barely a slime trail which disappears in the next high tide. So there's a variety of situations. Another is people trapped in the boil hole behind rapids. The jet boat cannot get in there because the water is too flocculated for the propeller to operate, whereas the hovercraft only sees the situation only as a surface, and so can zip in there and tow people out or pull them out.
You mentioned that it's problematic to rescue someone with a helicopter. They have to be strapped around and go up through the air. You have scared people. Same thing with the animals when they have to be rescued that way. I would assume that the hovercraft would be less frightening for the rescued people and animals.
Most people really enjoy the ride. I know my dog happily jumps into the hovercraft if he knows I'm going out in it. He doesn't particularly mind the propeller noise with the anticipation of the great place wherever we're going. So they're not very scary at all.
Why hasn't it been used already? Are you designing the first one?
No, I'm not. Hovercrafts have got a really bad reputation by other manufacturers that made small, recreational, unstable machines. Everybody jumped into these little things and tore off at huge velocities and then crashed. Then the insurance companies wouldn't have anything to do with them, and those companies moved out of the country. So what I'm designing is a different machine that has more area, less cushion pressure, less horsepower, and it's more like a bass boat. So I can pull right up to a flooded house or to a car stranded in the rapids and pull people out of there. And not only people, but I'm excited to rescue animals also, cats and dogs, not horses.
It is so important in emergencies that we rescue humans, but also remember our animal friends, and they need rescues also. It sounds as though early technology wasn't so great, and that has put a damper on improvements and utilizing a technology that could be very valuable. And I was reading about some of the advantages that you claim that hovercrafts have, that they provide fast, immediate rescue response. They're 1/10 the cost of a helicopter. They're not limited by current or water depth like a boat. They are able to access flooded and partially flooded areas where other machines are not able to do so. They are quiet enough to speak normally in and around these machines, extremely maneuverable, spins on its center, cheap to operate. So what are they made of, and how much does it cost?
I started out making these out of a composite, basically a foam and fiberglass sandwich, but since then I've gone to all aluminum frame and even more lightweight materials. These hovercrafts are currently made with an aluminum frame and a vinyl outside skin with a sheet metal aluminum floor. So the overall construction is very light. So a 16 by 8 foot hovercraft, even with the engine, will only be around 300 pounds, so two people could almost move it around. But very tough and tested in multiple rugged conditions.
Apparently they use gasoline, but you're also creating electric hovercrafts?
Yes, currently I am using high-efficiency gasoline, small gasoline engines, and I would like to make them electric. Doing the mathematics on the situation, though, it would take like 2 Tesla power walls to only run like 3 hours. So the energy density of electric is not dense enough to run these propellers and rotate the machine currently.
Your company, Hovercraft Rescue and Transport, is a successor to West Coast Hovercraft Incorporated. How do you differentiate this independent manufacturer and operations contractor with your operations?
I guess I'm just going to segue one business name into another.
Is your company doing the design and another company doing the manufacturing?
No, I'm doing all the design and the manufacturing at this point.
You believe that if your craft is used in rescue operations, companies could sponsor these operations and publicize their company name and get publicity that way?
This is the intent of the whole program, is to have the hovercraft and the operators all emblazoned with a company's logo. And so when we're out there rescuing or bringing people back in, the TV cameras are going to be all over us.
But you're really interested in rescuing people and animals in desperate situations, in flooded areas, wherever there are storms, tsunamis, tidal surge floods. The interest is to provide a boat that can aid with getting medical personnel, services, emergency supplies quickly to these areas in need. We're seeing that the climate change issue is causing more hurricanes, more floods, more disasters. It seems as though, unfortunately, we're going to need more and more rescues than we would like to.
Yes.
Is it going to be just here in the United States or in other parts of the world?
I would love to be all over the world. My immediate goal is to make 1,000 of these things to not only service the United States, but also other countries. Big floods in India lately, Greece, Libya, all these places could benefit from these hovercrafts.
Why would a hovercraft be able to get in where a boat can't?
Because a hovercraft doesn't actually displace any water. So, like I said, it's like floating on a bubble. So it can go over all sorts of debris, logs, shallows, cross sections of road that aren't flooded to get back in. It can go upstream, like a breached dam is pouring water through. It can climb up that. It's highly versatile in the type of terrain. All it needs is to be semi-flat, and it can go there.
Right now, emergency responders are using helicopters, boats, and other kinds of rescue equipment. What is the cost differential in what they currently have versus what it would be to use a hovercraft?
I would say a hovercraft could travel, for an example, a mile through all sorts of flooded terrain, grab 3 people, and bring them back to safety for a cost. Well, if you're paying the operator maybe $100. If you go in there with a helicopter and do the same thing, it would probably be more like $10,000 or at least $5,000.
Helicopters cost a lot of money. How much does a hovercraft cost?
To buy one of these hovercrafts that I currently am making would be approximately $40,000.
Sounds very reasonable and something that should certainly be considered for these emergency operations. If people want to see pictures or contact you and find out more information, where would they go?
Go to this website I have.
https://hover66.wixsite.com/hovercraft-rescue. And how is that spelled?
hovercraft-rescue. A email address that I can be contacted at all the time is hover6@msn.com. That's HOVER, the numeral 6, at msn.com or com.
I look forward to taking a ride in it and seeing it in rescue operations. I'd like to thank you so very much for creating this very important new piece of technology. Thank you so very much for being my guest.
Thank you.
I have been speaking with Charles Beyer, who is the Executive Director, CEO, and founder of Hovercraft Rescue and Transport, and is also a designer and civil and mining engineer. I'm Nancy Perlman. Thank you very much for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Perlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.